England in 1016 was having what we would now call a systems failure. The old king, Ethelred, died in April. The succession process immediately turned into a split-screen constitutional drama. One set of decision-makers in London backed Edmund Ironside, while another assembly at Southampton backed Cnut. Same kingdom, two kings, and absolutely no one saying, "Let's maybe calm down first." Edmund was tough, fast, and permanently angry. Cnut was patient, strategic, and running a Viking invasion like a disciplined corporate merger. Hostile, yes, but very well managed. To understand Assandun, you have to understand that it wasn't one battle in isolation. It was the violent climax of a campaign year that felt like 5 years compressed into one. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle describes Cnut arriving with a large fleet, 160 ships, and pushing through Mercia while burning and plundering. Edmund repeatedly raised armies and repeatedly fought, including battles around Penselwood, Sherston, Brentford, and elsewhere, with London repeatedly under threat. In modern terms, Edmund was firefighting a national emergency, while Cnut kept finding new fires to start. Edmund earned the nickname Ironside because he kept coming back. He relieved London, forced reversals, and showed real battlefield grit. But grit is not the same thing as strategic depth, especially when your nobles are about as loyal as a weather vane in a hurricane. The Chronicle's account of 1016 is full of shifts, hesitations, and betrayals involving major magnates, most famously Eadric Streona, who appears in this story like a man determined to prove that treachery can, in fact, be a full-time profession. By October, the two sides collided in Essex at a place the sources call Assandun or Assingdon. Modern spellings vary, and so do location theories. Many historians place it at or near Assingdon, but debate has persisted for centuries, with Ashton and other Essex locations also proposed. So yes, one of the most important battles in English history is partly a geography argument. Historians are nothing if not consistent. Where the swords stop, the footnotes begin. What we can say with confidence is this: on 18 October 1016, Edmund's army and Cnut's army met in a decisive engagement, and Cnut won hard. The Chronicle portrays Edmund making his 5th major levy of all the English nation before this showdown. That phrase matters. It suggests the scale of effort and desperation. Edmund had thrown everything at the problem. Assandun was the moment the ledger closed, and the bill was ruinous. Now enter Eadric, stage left, carrying a betrayal and absolutely no shame. The Chronicle says that at Assingdon he began the flight with his men, effectively collapsing English cohesion at the worst possible moment. Whether every detail is exactly as later retellings imagine, the tradition of betrayal is deeply embedded in the narrative, and the result is clear. Cnut's side took the day. Edmund's coalition shattered. If you were writing this as fiction, your editor would say, "Bit too obvious with the traitor character." History said, "Keep him, he's real." The casualty list, recorded in the Chronicle, reads like the elite directory of late Anglo-Saxon England being methodically crossed out. Bishop Adnoth, abbots, ealdormen, major regional leaders including Ulfsidel, gone. It says, in effect, that the nobility of the English nation was undone there. Even if chroniclers were being dramatic, the political meaning is unmistakable. Assandun was not just a tactical defeat, it was a decapitation of leadership. Kingdoms can survive a lost field. They struggle to survive a lost command class. After the battle, events moved quickly from slaughter to negotiation. Cnut marched toward Gloucestershire. Talks followed. The Chronicle reports that the two kings met at Olney, often called Alney, south of Deerhurst, made terms, exchanged oaths, and divided rule. Edmund kept Wessex, Cnut took Mercia and the north. This was not friendship in any modern sentimental sense. It was political arithmetic with swords still wet. Two exhausted rivals, one island, zero appetite for another immediate bloodbath. Then came the twist that ended the contest completely. Edmund died on St. Andrew's feast day, 30 November 1016, just weeks after the settlement. With that, Cnut became undisputed king of all England.
If you're Edmund, that is catastrophic timing. If you're Cnut, history has just handed you the whole board. The campaign year that began in confusion ended in a full dynastic turnover. By 1017, Cnut was dividing the realm into great earldoms and removing dangerous figures, including eventually Eadric himself. Even ruthless kings disliked freelance treachery once they're in charge. Assandun also left a memorial footprint. The chronicle records Cnut going to Assingdon in 1020 and ordering a minster built for the souls of those killed there. Later tradition links this commemoration with the site at Assingdon and the Church of St. Andrew. That detail is worth pausing on. A conqueror, victorious by force, publicly memorializing the dead from both sides. Syndical politics? Genuine piety? Probably both. Medieval kings were perfectly capable of layered motives.
And what of Cnut afterward? He didn't just sit on England like a raider camping in conquered territory. He consolidated. Royal accounts note that he became undisputed king in 1016, extracted the last large Danegeld in 1018, married Emma, and eventually ruled a broader North Sea sphere including Denmark and Norway. In other words, Assingdon wasn't the end of a raid, it was the foundation of a trans-regional monarchy. That's a very different headline from Vikings loot place, leave. Now, because schoolbooks love a meme, people remember Cnut as the man who tried to command the tide. But that story is later and not contemporary to Cnut's life. It's associated with Henry of Huntingdon, writing more than a century afterward. If anything, the older point is about humility and kingship under God, not a king literally arguing with seawater. So no, Cnut was not defeated by basic oceanography at Assingdon. At Assingdon, he defeated Edmund Ironside and changed English history. The tide story came later. The political tide turned in 1016. So here's the verdict. The Battle of Assandun matters because it ended the final military contest for England in 1016, broke Edmund's resistance, and delivered the crown to Cnut through force, bargaining, and timing so brutal it almost feels scripted. It was a hinge point between late Anglo-Saxon instability and a new, harder-edged but administratively effective kingship. If 1066 is the conquest everyone remembers, 1016 is the conquest too many forget. Same island, same stakes, different accents, and one very expensive lesson. In medieval politics, if you lose your last big battle, your kingdom may become someone else's autumn project.